I call the committee of the whole meeting to order for Monday, October 27th, 2025. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda of the committee of the whole meeting for Monday, October 27th, 2025? Councillor Bassett, Councillor Ray, favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, we have only one item on the agenda today from our Public Works Department regarding the facility asset review. And Tony's here to give us a presentation. The floor is yours, Tony.
So before Tony gets started, I just wanted to give council just a little overview of where we're at in administration. So as council knows, Public Works Asset Management Program has really made a lot of progress in terms of managing our fleet. And since then, the lineal assets like our water and sewer systems are in really great shape in terms of where we are with asset management. The one area we knew needed a bit more work was our building assets. And then if you recall, we did a restructuring last summer where we took not just the building assets managed under Public Works, but all the building assets that were formerly managed under Culture and Rec. And we've moved them also under Public Works. So then all the arenas and recreation facilities are all falling under the Public Works umbrella for asset management. So this is now a presentation of where that whole program is at. So thanks. Go ahead, Tony.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. So today we'll be presenting the 2025 Facilities Asset Review. We can get my presentation put up. So our current budget includes a significant number of smaller projects included as end of life in our asset management plan. So today's meeting aims to explore long-term asset replacement strategies and opportunities to consolidate these projects into larger coordinated renovations. Through further condition assessments, we will identify high priorities as well as low-hanging fruit to achieve cost-effective, high-value projects. This approach will allow us to better leverage reserve funding and capitalize on economies of scale for improved efficiency and cost effectiveness. So just example, number of assets in the pool are reaching end of life. So, we could really, rather than looking at individual assets, to sort of pull them back into, a big renovation where, we're doing the flooring and tiling and HVAC units all in one larger renovation. So in 2025, 1,440 assets were inventoried, everything from doors, flooring to major mechanical systems. These are high-level asset assessments that considers condition, function, capacity, impact, and risk, as well as cost of the asset. It does not take into consideration all the added cost to replace or repair an asset. The facility assets, okay. So here's an example of one asset that was assessed. So this is the one of the main compressors for the ice and the HVAC at Western Financial Place. So in some cases, there could be other costs associated with replacing the assets, like the ammonia tank that's in the same room. We literally would have to remove the roof to replace it. But in this case, the refrigeration compressor, we could rebuild it at half the cost of a new replacement. So every single asset, we really need to take a deeper dive and decide how to move forward with the replacement. So as you can see on this slide, when this was assessed this summer, they observed an additional 4 years left on the life, and the asset renewal came in at $107,000. And we've sort of looked into this a bit, and we can replace the core the compressor, you know, for about half that cost. So. Okay, so what I've done now, or what we've done now, is we've pulled out all of the condition scores of all the assets in red. So those are basically what needs to be replaced in the next 5 years. And the blue line is what we have in the budget. So as you can see, the first one is City Hall. You know, we know there's some work coming up on City Hall, and you know, the blue is our current planned project. So there's some bigger HVAC, and some of the projects we've also moved out to 2031 as well. So you know, it's sort of all things we knew. Community theater. Now let's keep in mind this is over 100-year-old building, so you know, if we were to really go into a condition assessment on the building, you know, it could be, we'd be looking pretty deep into the structure and, you know, how it meets, you know, current standards, and, you know, could become quite costly, right? 8th Ave building. So, you know, we know that building is it's not a very well built building. It's an asset we acquired at some point, and you know, at some point we're going to have to make a decision whether to make some major repairs or you know, or you know, demolish it. But right now it's creating an income, so let's continue on and keep patching it. Cocoa Beach.
Oh, okay, I forgot we moved it.
Yeah, it's just something we've had for years, and something we need to make a decision on at some point. Beaumont building, yeah, so, you know, the big number up front is mostly the new roof, but there's a number of other assets, windows, doors, and, you know, pretty low risk assets that, you know, that are that need to be replaced in the next while. So we sort of got to just continue on with that one. It's Cranbrook Public Library. So yeah, so this building was in the 70s, built in the 70s. So, you know, we do have some, there has been quite a few updates, and we acquired it in the early 2000s, but we do have some big dollars to look at in the next 5 years. So whether we can push some of it down the road or not is still to be determined. Curling Club. So you see the spike in our funding. So that's the planned roof replacement. We're continually assessing that, and you know, looking at this time, we'll still be able to push that further down the road, and then we have other items coming up as well in that building. Fire hall building was built, finished in 2012 or just before that. So again, minor stuff coming up. As you can see, our blue line sort of lines up with the planned funding, with some planned work being done in 2028. Kingsman Arena. So here's an example. We have some high costs that are coming down the road. You know, we haven't been planning replacement on that, some replacements on that building. So, you know, something we need to get on fairly quick here. Memorial Arena, same thing. So definitely we need to get on the planning process for some upgrades there, and you know, mostly around probably a lot of the refrigeration equipment and that kind of stuff that's coming up. Public Works building. So, you know, it aligns quite nicely. You know, keep in mind, some of these numbers are literally things like siding and, you know, things that we can put off. So, you know, it's seems to be funded accordingly. RCMP building. Yeah, so we all know we have taken a deeper dive into that building, and there's a, you know, this assessment doesn't get deep into the structure and the security issues that we know about there. And the senior centers hall, yeah, so there's some work again coming down the road there.
Yep, certainly. Councillor Papa.
Tony, thanks. Your RCMP, I thought we passed a motion to borrow $14 million towards the major repair, upgrade, renovate, expand it so it's user friendly and everything. And I'm seeing the blue lines not indicating any of that.
So the blue line doesn't show borrowing.
Okay,
It's our reserves, but what we're,
very good. Okay.
yeah. And then I'm going to bring back in the budget process where we're at on the RCMP and the recommendation.
Because you're painting a pretty dark picture there with that blue line going down. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, senior citizens hall, we're aligning fairly well there. Now, as we all know, Western Financial Place is, getting up to 25 years old, and it's a lot of assets at that age that need to be replaced. Some bigger renos like the pool area. So you can see where these are the big numbers that come into place. So what I'll do next is I've overlaid all facility assets so we can get an idea of the bigger picture. And that's where these numbers really start to stack. So when we're looking at all facilities, you can start to see the numbers get fairly large, getting down around the 5 years. And then even I'll pull up 10 years as well. And it's showing some large numbers as well. So what we've done here is basically projects funded out of reserve and how it aligns with all facilities. And as you can see, we're showing a major shortfall.
So Tony, it looks like 29 and 30 are going to be interesting years. And the majority of that is going to be borrowing, eh?
Yeah, or a combination of both. So,
Yeah.
Further on down the line, we'll have some discussion points around that.
This is a good one to talk about. Like you have a lot of small projects.
A lot of money.
Yeah, so the blue projects are a large number of, or the blue line are all their projects that we have planned to fund out of the reserve. What the plan will be to delay a lot of what's non-essential and try and put it near the end to plan some larger renovations. So I'll just carry on through. I think the slides will sort of tell the story here as we move on. So here's a 10-year outlook. So as you can see, 2031, there's a large number coming right behind our 5-year plan that we really need to come up with some long-term planning. So this slide, I wanted to talk a little bit about construction cost escalations compared to inflation. So the slide on the left to the 28.3, so that's 2014 to 2024 CPI. It's amounted to 28.3. The blue is residential construction costs, and the light blue is commercial construction costs. So as you can see, construction is averaging 2 to 3 times what CPI is. And then the slide on the right is some BC data I found on for the last 8 quarters. And as you can see, we've experienced 10% or 5% annually in the last 2 quarters. So it's a trend that continues well past, what we call the big COVID inflation. So, it's still, we're still doubling CPI. So what we did on these next slides is we took the known construction escalation and we added it to to our 2025 data. And you can now see that our $15 million in projects is now 20. And then looking at the 10 years, we 2031, we're looking at $15 million or almost $16 million. So we took all the same data and we thought, okay, well, what happens if we spread this out over the 10 years and to something that's more manageable? And what it looks like is, in today's dollars, is having to fund the reserves $6 million annually, and it might look a little bit different with interest and different inflationary factors, but as you can see, it's still really not a sustainable model. So I think we have, like I was saying before, like this is literally taking every single door, window, the paint on the walls, and putting a number to it. So it's not really, we're not saying it's not sustainable. We're just saying we got to take a deeper dive to understand how we can fund it so it is sustainable. Oof. So, as of today, I spoke to our facility asset inventory. Literally, let's look at it. It's a 10,000 foot view. It's a path. It guides us. We really got to take a deeper dive. Like, we took this approach on City Hall when it was 25 years old. We would have never, expected it to last 100 years. So, the numbers, yeah, they're a little scary, but I think when we start drilling down, we'll be able to work out a more sustainable long-term plan. So, where we think we need to go for today is to plan some actual facility condition assessments, and that's where we're going to dig in a little deeper, do deeper visual inspections, system evaluations, really look for the deficiencies, start pulling some more accurate class C estimating on priorities, and then life cycle forecasting on any priority projects, on sort of guiding what we would be replacing assets with moving forward. And then from that we know our priorities, and then we start project planning and design. So that's where we're getting down to the detail of creating prints and planning projects. So very similar to how we've seen the RCMP project evolve. So we start working with stakeholders and needs assessments, feasibility, and drilling. Once we have prints, we'll have Class A estimates, which are 90% accurate, and then how we can schedule out this over time. So very high level, but here's some opportunities, and sort of see how we thought it might look for the next foreseeable future. So 2025, the fire hall debt has expired, so that's good news on the borrowing side. 2027, the library debt has expired, so again we could increase funding to reserves. I'm also, just based on where we're at with the RCMP, I'm going to bring back to budget a recommendation to possibly move that to 2027. And then and then we'd also have a better idea where all these other projects are at. 2030, we could potentially start going through the borrowing process to fund some larger projects. And 2031, we have the Western Financial Place debt expiring, so that's good news there.
Councillor
Thank you.
Papa.
It's great news that we're finally going to be retiring some debt here. So fire hall, the library,
Wayne Titsky.
Western Financial, what is that total amount of debt that will be retiring? What would be the yearly payment to those debts now that we're retiring?
Thank you, Councillor Papa. I don't have that information in front of me. I'd have to come back with it. So it's just, I
asked because I think even just with Western Financial, it's a pretty significant number.
Yeah, so I'm just showing them as opportunities. And, I think really once we have decided on our path, we need to look at, at our debt and our reserves and try and work out, a sustainable path for the facility. So, on our planning side, so 20.
Excuse me, Councillor Stetsky has a question.
Yeah, thank you. And it might be too early to be looking at solutions, but Tony, have you looked at what we might have to set as an annual percentage increase similar to what we do with the road tax to moving forward, where to try and get a handle on this in the long term? Any idea of what percentage that might be? I mean, it limits our hands a little bit in terms of course, every year we can say yes or no to the road tax, but it might give us a little firmer foundation on trying to deal with this in the future if we picked a percentage of taxation that was there every year.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Stetsky. I think that is going to be in the, in the next few years of planning. There's a number of income revenues, I think we've that we need to look at, and it's going to be a combination of all potentially a facility, funding specifics for the facilities, or can we manage it under our current funding models, or a combination of all three with including some borrowing. I think it really, going back to my previous slides, we'll be coming back with something similar, how we can actually fund it when we actually know what we're going to do and what projects we're going to plan. So it really is a little bit too early to really, put some numbers to that.
Okay, thank you.
So maybe just Councillor Stetsky, so Tony's presentation is really the high level roadmap, so council can see the overview, like he said, 10,000 feet. So you look out into the future, 10 years at a very high level. And so that's kind of what the main part of the presentation is so far before we get anywhere near that level of detail. And I guess the next really important part is the condition assessment. So it's like we did with, say, lineal assets. A pipe may be something that'll go in the ground and has a lifespan of 50 years. But when we do a condition assessment, some perform better than others in different types of soils, and one pipe will last 100 years, and that same pipe in a different type of soil might last 20 years. So then that's where the next step really is about the actual condition assessment. So yeah, they're trying to give you guys a high level roadmap first, and then you can talk about more detail.
All right, so on our planning side, so what we're proposing is in 2026, we basically remove all non-essential projects from the budget. We will come back to the November meeting with only essential facility projects. You know, we budget, or we'll be requesting the $700,000 to start going through the facility assessments and start working through the plan. Then we'll from that we'll be prioritizing, have better ideas on a closer estimate on these priorities. 2027 to 2028. We'll define the essential projects, and then we'll be working through some designs on those projects and trying to build them out to a Class A estimate. And you know, so we'll roll out that way, and then, you know, potentially we're not 100% sure on the year, but we're thinking 2029 onwards, we'll have these projects planned out. So again, high level summary. So we really need to strategic long-term planning of the capital and the borrowing. That's going to be key here. You know, more important than anything, we need to extend the life of the assets, whatever that means, whether it's rebuilding them, getting another 10 years out of the asset, you know, for you know, half the cost, or however that works out on a life cycle cost scenario. Prioritize critical and high risk assets, and then identify cost effective high value projects. Incorporate life cycle costing into our decisions, and consider the environment and the social impacts of those decisions. And we need to be you know, have a number of these projects grant ready when there are opportunities. So, you know, if we do have all these pen to paper on these projects, and we have you know, an opportunity, we're ready. So, you know, at the November 17th budget meeting, staff will be recommending that only essential facility projects be included in the 2026 to 2030 capital plan. I'm talking to finance whether it makes sense to you know, sort of leave it at the end of that plan or kick them off to 2031 so we don't lose track of them. Just so they might end up in or out, just we're trying to decide on where it makes most sense. And then so all non-essential projects will be deferred pending further review. And in addition, staff will request $700,000 to support facility assessments and design work for identified priority projects. So as soon as we identify anything high priority, we're going to be starting to put pen to paper and coming back with actual project costs. Thank you.
I think we'll just go around the table and see any questions or comments. Maybe start with Councillor Stetsky. No?
No.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Peabody, nothing? Councillor Bissett, pretty easy group today.
Until now. No, it's okay. No, I appreciate the work you've done on this. I think it is important to have that large view and not to get too bogged down in worst case scenarios. You know, bringing to us the essentials, I think, is appropriate and may always be appropriate with an eye to what else. Because, I mean, the taxpayer, yeah, there's that philosophy on how much money you should put away for future. They're all and that kind of thing, and we do have that capability of borrowing in the future. So I do appreciate that. I was thinking about, oh, maybe we should have a party when we, you know, pay off the mortgage for Western Financial Place. But the problem is we're already repairing. You know, it may not be much of a party. So Anyways, thank you, Tony, for your work.
Thank you. Councillor Ray?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the excellent work on this, Tony. I think this is excellent information. It's going to really help us make decisions moving forward. So I think a question from the community, and I mean, hindsight has limited value, but I think people might ask, like, how did we get here? And I don't think we're alone in getting to this point. I think there's lots of stuff in the news about other communities also looking at not only facilities but infrastructure and having and being behind. So if folks ask in the community, oh gosh, maybe they do think the graphs look a little scary. Do you have any thoughts that you would share on like how we got here? And I think this is a new day because we're now taking this intentional asset management approach. But yeah, just any thoughts for community members who might ask?
Thank you, Councillor Ray. I think truly that, we always made decisions with the best information we had. Like anything, it would be nice to go back in time. I think it really highlights the importance of reserve funding and how reserve funding, when we consider, the interest rates and how they sort of could offset inflation a bit, it really highlights the importance of what we've done with the reserves in the last few years and how we need to continually use this data to plan, long term. So, we gotta always consider our children and not passing it off to our children. So.
So just further to that, I guess, on not just Canada-wide, but North America or globally, like FCM's put out a really good report on the infrastructure deficit, it's called. And so there is, a known gap in local governments out there everywhere on what level of funding and repairs have taken place with all types of assets and where the asset conditions are today. And I'll just say, like, working in a number of different communities and working on this asset management program, even starting back 20 years ago in Prince George, and Asset Management BC and the work that Cranbrook's done over the last 10 years is excellent. So, as many communities struggle with managing assets, and I can tell you today, even right now, there's many municipalities operating with blinders on in terms of where their asset conditions are and what's coming. And so, like I said earlier in the introduction, Cranbrook has done an excellent job under the asset management program with Mike and Tony, and there's quite a number of staff here that have put a ton of work into bringing Cranbrook into the future in asset management. And we really shine in terms of where we are with fleet and where we've come with lineal assets, meaning water, sewer, roads, excellent programs. The place that we were short is buildings, and we knew that. And especially, there was some buildings under Public Works that were getting some progress, but it was the rec buildings because they were being managed with just no capacity or resources to look after them. So you get shock and awe like we got with Memorial, and we've got with all the repairs coming with a lot of the rec facilities. So bringing that under that portfolio under Tony's shop with the asset management program is what Cranbrook needs to do. And so really today was about that high level view of what that might look like. And now with the condition assessments, then that will bring it into a more granular level where we can start planning financially out into the future. So we're kind of, it's a big shock of our system of Cranbrook of how we've operated, but we're heading in the right way.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, thank you, CAO Furcho. I would agree. I think moving the rec facilities under Public Works is an excellent strategic decision, makes sense. And I think, having those two functions siloed was probably something that was kind of inherited from when Western Financial Place was started as a public-private partnership with a contractor in place. So, it takes time to change direction. I think this is a really important strategic change that we've made, and I fully support that work. So thank you very much. The other question I had was, Tony, I wonder if you could just speak a bit to the potential efficiencies that could be realized by looking at larger comprehensive projects rather than approaching sort of multiple smaller projects over a number of years. So for example, you're talking about the pool. So just for the community's benefit, wonder if you could speak to the potential efficiencies by chunking into a larger comprehensive project.
Yeah, so, obviously, just trying to plan each individual project one at a time, it's just, with the numbers we're looking at, it's just not manageable. And then, and with every system, let's say we're replacing, I spoke about the compressor, or that compressor affects everything else in the line. So, by, pulling out a single asset and, looking back and, planning it, we're going to ensure that not only is the compressor replaced, but, ensuring that, all the pipes and tanks and pumps and everything that go with it, get upgraded. And obviously, higher numbers, focusing on, on a large, much larger project, it just all gets done in a much faster, more timely manner. So, you can't really put a percentage or anything like that. It's just a function of, larger renovations. And I think the end product will be much better too, because you think of the pool. Well, okay, we do a renovation on the pool. We're not just doing the tiling, and everything else is left looking like 2000 colors, and everything will just coordinate well, and the end result will just be a nice, just a better product.
Councillor Popov.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Tony, this is awesome. Being planned and prepared prevents us from being one of those communities that, kick the essential repairs and replacements down the road and then potentially compromises safety. And therefore, those communities tend to get on the national news. We don't want to be one of those. You mentioned Kinsman Arena as part of the facility condition of priorities. Would we also use future use expectations? Because I think we've heard earlier from staff that maybe this public skating, hockey, ice time in the community is going down. I think that if that's still correct, and then if you then project it, at some point, do we still need to have a Kinsman Arena or have an ice surface there? If the trends are going this way, and we're going to be upspending on repairs and replacements, there might be a crossover where you might come back to council and say, given its projected long-term usage rates, we may not need a third ice surface requirement. Just a question if you want to maybe build that into your metrics. And also, as we're talking, the regional district keeps popping up in my head about how we really need to petition the regional district to start cost sharing, especially our recreation facilities, because they're not contributing to that. So hopefully that's a priority for this council going forward in working with the city.
Councillor Graham.
I'm good, thank you. It was a good report.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly, Tony, well done. I think finally we're at a place where we need to be. When you look at some of these numbers, the request for 700,000 support facility assessments, although that stings a little bit, that's where we need to be. For how many years have we had surprises? We've finally hit in that period now. Our asset management is in a position now where I think we have a really good handle on not just on what we got on condition, the plans in place. We're starting to look strategically at it. We were so reactionary forever. We're in an extremely good strategic position now, and I'm really, really impressed. The numbers sometimes are a little scary, but you know what? That's the real cost of doing business. And again, I would like Councillor Popoff, as we're going through this, when you look at some of these big numbers, recreation is extremely expensive. You know, that's not a mandated service of a municipal council, but we don't have a choice. If you look at the cost that recreation, our facilities are in here, I think it's imperative that we have to get something done with the regional district. You know, we've looked at operational costs in the past. We say, wow, here's the operational costs. This gives us a way better look at the real costs. We were just looking at annual operating costs. Let's add these maintenance costs. We haven't even considered debt servicing on these types of things. It's all relevant, and I think that's the big conversation we have to have with them, because this is big dollars going forward. I guess the question for Charlotte, it's a little late now, but I'm just looking at our agreement with the fire department. So it's roughly based on, I know we got away from the 20% thing, but it's roughly based on 20%. Did we factor in debt servicing on that at all as a part of their contribution?
Mayor Price, indirectly, as you are alluding to, it was roughly based on the 20% that was embedded in the agreement prior to the one we have now. And that agreement was very sort of administratively taxing, a lot of calculations. There wasn't a predictable spend that the RDEC could budget for. It was a little bit more erratic. So for that reason, we went to a base amount and then inflated it. So it is embedded in there indirectly, but not specifically.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and that's all I got. See, Councillor Stetsky's hand up. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, and good discussion. But one of the things led me to wonder about is, so for the $700,000, what does the end product look like? Will it look at, for example, facilities should be closed, to build a little bit on what Councillor Popoff said, seek additional funding from the regional district because it's a shared benefit, taxation, seek federal grants for this project, provincial grants for that kind of project going forward? Or just wondering what'll be in the $700,000 report in the end.
Thank you, Councillor Stetsky. It'll essentially just provide us with the deeper dive into the facility. So they'll be looking at things like the actual structure, all the pieces that are of the building, and coming back to us with what we actually have to do, like what we need to do and when we need to do it. And it'll provide us also with, much more accurate numbers, the Class C estimates. So, we've defined this project as being essential. Well now, let's just throw the swimming pool renovation out there, just because we've been talking about it, is, that's defined as essential. Well, here's the cost that comes out of it. And they're going to be looking at every structure, the structure, every HVAC unit. They're going to be in detail. They're going to be looking at, the tiles and what some options on the best products moving forward, if that's seen as essential. And just sort of laying out much better roadmap than what we have now, because like I mentioned previously, this is very high level and we don't truly know the costs and what actually needs to be done.
So it'll be a clear understanding of the problem, but not recommending how we move forward. That would probably come back to council to decide.
Yeah, if it comes back and we find out a building, might cost more than what it's worth to continue to own it, and it might be even minor buildings, though then as council and staff, we need to work back and forth and decide whether it's an asset that we continue with, and it could be, anything with any asset within the city. And, I'm hoping, with, more work on staff side is that we can build out from this, what is sustainable. And, there might, out of this report, there might be, and what we come back with as staff, there might be some decisions on, some hard, difficult decisions to keep it sustainable. I don't know at this point what the outcome will be.
Councillor Bissett.
Thank you. And one thing that I do think we need to look at is we have essential buildings and then we have some non-essential buildings. And for example, when I asked about what is it on 8th Avenue, well, the Cocoa Beach site. So we can look at that. We could look at Belmont. We could look at the senior center. Those are just three up. Like, how many of these do we want to maintain as city assets or important as city assets? And how many could we look at selling? So I think that might be important work for staff to do, because that is more of a long-term decision. And also it affects how much we're investing in things like that. I mean, we're not selling Western Financial Place, but at least I don't think so. But we have sort of our core buildings, and then we have some periphery ones that we've inherited over time that I think it would be good to have a look at whether we should keep them or not.
See Overtrup.
And so I guess, from Tony's work, as Councillor Stetsky said, that will bring information to council that we can then work with. So right now, as he said, with the 10,000 foot level, that's your theoretical service life of all the assets. Tony used a great example with windows, for example, that were supposed to last 25 to 30 years, and we're getting 50 years out of the windows. So right now, like we're going from a place where we're reactionary, where we really don't know, like we're bumping along, maintaining these buildings with little projects to patch them along, to now moving into a system that is looking at the long term for those buildings. And as you said, at 10,000 feet. So now we kind of know what buildings we have, what's the theoretical service life of all these parts and pieces of the buildings. The next part is that condition assessment. And that's like, I used that example of the pipes, because some things in, I guess Western Financial is some great examples of things that have a theoretical service life of 50 years or so, but the caustic environment, there's down to 10 or 15 years. So until we do that condition assessment, we don't have those numbers. So we're just guessing. But with that project, we will have those numbers. And so as Councillor Bissett said, once we really see those numbers, we can start making some really good decisions about, is this something that's important to the city at this cost? And then make a decision if we want to maintain ownership of that facility or not in the long term. And that one example you used on 8th Ave, now that we know, what's going on underground and we know what the building's like, is that really something we want to maintain it? That one, once we get the numbers, I think we can make some decisions for just one example, but there's lots of others. So this step though is so important to get us into that place to make decisions, because otherwise, if you ask staff to help make those kinds of decisions now, we really would be just guessing. This will give us that data.
Anything further, council? Staff? No? If there's nothing further, I'll get a motion to adjourn. Councillor Ray, Councillor Bissett, all in favor, opposed? Adjourn. Good meeting.